866-594-4150. Let's actually talk to Jim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
Oh, good morning, guys. It's my wife hearing a noise in her 2013 Highlander. It only did it in the morning when it's kind of cold, kind of a metal on metal sounds, kind of a squeak. Our local mechanic diagnosed that the transfer case could be going bad. I can change out the transfer case in my 99 Chevy pickup in an afternoon. Can I do that to this Toyota?
Hey, I just got to ask a couple questions before we let you go forward with this. So you said this in a way that
we heard some things.
Yeah,
I tried to say it nice.
You've never heard this noise, apparently.
I did. I drove it for 2 days. I heard it for a total of 100 feet.
Okay.
And it's not a hard grind. It sounds like I don't know, steel wool on a pan. You know, it's just, you can barely hear it.
Well, my mom and dad have been married 50 years plus, and they're madly in love. But there are certain things that they don't exist if my mom sees it or hears it until my dad sees it or hears it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was checking on that. Right. I just wanted to make sure where we were at on this.
I was going to drive it for as long as it took until I heard that.
Now, that's a good husband right there.
There you go.
Steel wool on a pan.
So it didn't make much noise. Sometimes it's kind of squeaky, and local mechanic changed out the fluid yesterday, and I don't know if he heard it or not, but he diagnosed it as a transfer case, and I don't know a thing about Toyotas, so I thought I'd get your opinion.
If it comes and goes, I'm leery of the transfer case. If it's steady all the time, possibly. But another thing that happens on those, there's a shield over the top of the drive shaft area by the exhaust. It's an exhaust shield. That may be contacting part of that shaft back there, causing that sound. It sounds similar to steel wool in a pan. And
some serious, we have 3 Toyotas total in our family over time, and there have probably been a half dozen noises that sound like metal falling apart or grinding apart or steel wool on a pan, and it's been heat shields that have just become dislodged or unhooked.
My daughter's Camry, one of the mounts for the heat shield, got some corrosion on it, and it broke off and was laying against something, making a heck of a racket underneath there. It no longer has that heat shield.
And it sounds like the beginning of Vanilla Ice. You know, Ice Baby?
Yep.
Don't do the music.
Check around the drive shaft, and then also
that's drive shaft noise.
Check around the drive shaft, and it could be that you've got a joint going bad enough in your all-wheel drive shaft that when it's first starting, that it's abrasive.
Jim, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. We'd love to hear from you. I had a similar experience once with my wife where she saw something and I was like, okay. She was, you just said.
Was it dead people?
If your mom and dad don't see it together, it didn't happen yet.
I think a tornado could take out the building, and if my dad didn't see it,
it wasn't a tornado. Well, let's go take a look.
It wasn't a tornado. It might have just been an updraft.
Termites.
One day my wife got home, and she said, I just saw a mountain lion about a half a mile down the road. And I was like,
yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a big cat.
Was it a big, yeah, how,
Tabby.
She said, it was about the size of Homer, our dog, and it had a tail, like a thick tail, not furry. And I kind of in my mind went, well, that's one of the mountain lion signs.
Like 10 years ago, my wife and I.
Hold on. Because I said, no, you did. I mean, you did. It's fine. You probably saw something. Front page of the paper was a trail cam from about 2 miles from our house. A mountain lion walked right past our house, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile.
So then how'd you reconcile this?
I didn't bring it up until just now.
You're in trouble now. About 10 years ago, my wife, this thing happened, and you guys will remember it, but we said, did you just No, I didn't see what I thought I saw. No, I didn't either. So we both just looked at each other and didn't say anything. And 2 days later, it's like a moose was spotted down the Sioux River Valley. And I was like, we just looked at each other and smiled and said, yep. And then it happened again.
So neither one of you said anything?
We just looked and went, I thought I saw a putty cat. No, I thought yeah, we both thought we saw it. But then there was another mountain lion spotting this morning in Brookings.
Yeah. That's what made me think of it, too.
It's getting closer.
We had elk hoof prints in our yard once, and it turns out somebody had a farm and a fence went down. Neighbors took a picture in the paper, too.
Happen. We got some elk around here.
About the Bigfoot track.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Terry. You're on the Under the Hood show, Terry. What can we do for you?
Oh, yeah. I've got a problem that kind of reoccurs, and what we've been putting together is that it usually happens when it's probably like 5 below zero. And what it amounts to is when we get in to try to start this vehicle, we hit the key and there's a clicking sound, but the engine won't turn over. So what we did originally, this has happened maybe half a dozen times, we first took it to a mechanic and he said our starter was bad. Well, then we had the starter changed and then it occurred again. So he said, well, we had a bad starter. So then he put a second starter in it. And then this is kind of through the course of a winter. And then he said, well, the battery's bad. So we put a new battery in and we'll continue to do it. So then he checked all the cables and everything. And then what he ended up saying was, I think it's called a plug-in starting relay. It's like a real small relay that, actually starts, the whole system as far as turning the engine on. And here he thought he had everything, figured out. And lo and behold, like I said, when it's 6, 7 below, it did it again. So what we've been doing to get by is we actually hit the key, turn the engine all the way off, turn the key back, and then keep hitting it multiple times. And then eventually it just kicks and turns over and starts. And once it's warmed up, or when we're in a warmer temperature, the thing's flawless. And we have no idea what's going on. It's a very nice vehicle. We enjoy driving it, everything, but we're just kind of hesitant to take it out when it gets cold. So just wondering if you could help us out.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're sitting here thinking of winter right now. I don't know that I appreciate it completely, but this has been one of them things like, next winter we're gonna have that problem with the Yukon again. And then this morning it gets cooler, starts raining. You're like, oh, that Yukon problem. Is it still there? Yeah. I had a couple other people come to me and stuff. It's like, oh, remember last winter? I'm like, no, I forgot. So, now that 03 Yukon, that's a direct wired starter with a relay. It's almost got to be something in the ignition switch. If your tech has truly checked the starter, and now, having said this, and Russ, he's way more technical on this stuff than I am, but
when it's 5 below.
Yeah, but before he put that starter on, gosh, if you knew you could duplicate this, you'd want to check your voltage and your power at the starter first. If you knew you could duplicate it on a cold morning, but who wants to lay out there when it's 5 below and do a bunch of testing? I know these guys have done it often to replicate.
Right. Well, we drive it in the shop the night before. We connect our test equipment. We back it outside and leave it, and then we come in because there's many nights where we know that they'll say, hey, it could get down to 20 below tonight. That's the night that I want you scheduled in to bring it in the shop so I can connect just a voltmeter to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I back it out and I let it sit. And then I'm going to check voltage. And if I have voltage at that starter, then I can guarantee that starter's just bad. 2 in a row, that's odd.
Most likely not.
I'm betting on an electrical connection at that point. And the click you're hearing, is it under the hood, down low on the engine, like a starter click, click, click? Or
yeah, and I was going to say, I think, I'm kind of real mechanically savvy, but it's a starter. The solenoid is mounted on the starter, and it actually sounds like that's what's clicking.
Okay.
I'm not positive on that, but you can hear a definite click.
Well, that indicates two issues. Either the starter itself is bad, it's failed, and when it's that cold, it's not working. And then in that case, you could try a genuine GM starter and see what happens. And then the next thing would be to check voltage there, like Shannon was saying, because it's possible that your positive battery cable that runs down there has some corrosion inside where you can't see it, and it's just not making a good connection when it's really cold. But if you bump that starter several times, eventually it arcs inside of there where the corrosion is, and it makes that connection. And then once it warms up a few degrees, it runs fine.
Could a ignition switch do the same thing if it was that cold up? Most
Not
likely
if it's
not.
clicking. If he's hearing a click at the starter, the solenoid's moving out to
Yeah.
engage, which it uses the small power wire to engage it, but it needs that big power wire in order to crank it. And if we didn't have a good ground on the engine, we wouldn't have a ground on the body either, and it wouldn't be able to engage that solenoid. So I'm thinking that's what's going on. So we're going to have to get it when it's cold in a shop where they can put the voltmeter on it and see. And Terry, you originally wrote into one of our newspapers, our Ask the Motor Medics column that we have across the country, and we really appreciate you doing that. The newspapers out there, we get a lot of response from them. That's really great. But I might suggest that when you know when a stretch is coming where the old news says, hey, it's going to be 20 below at night, let's get that in and have it checked.
Terry, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Don. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Don, what can we do for you?
Morning, guys.
Go ahead, Don.
Got a 96 Dodge Dakota. Went to drive it yesterday morning. Pulled the headlight switch on, and the headlights don't light, and the taillights don't light. They'd worked the day before, and realized the dash lights don't work, door locks aren't working, and something weird too. The radio, the sound is there, but it's just real faint. Any ideas what's going on?
This is good, right? This helps us know.
Yeah, we've lost one of the major power connections to something in there. We would start by checking every fuse to see what's going on, and if we don't see anything in a fuse, because that's the easy thing you can do at home, and then the next thing you would do would be to just pick a circuit, pick one of the things that isn't working. Headlights is an easy one since that's not working, and then go to that circuit path, find the diagram that shows that circuit path, and backtrack the power, because if you fix power to one thing, more than likely you're going to fix power to all the issues that are down at once.
Is there any sort of is that new enough to have a module in there, Russ, that could?
No,
I didn't,
not on 96.
I wasn't thinking so.
Sounds like it's got a fuse link that's failed on it. One of them.
Well, kind of like that previous caller with the Yukon, we've seen quite a few of those, like Silverado pickups, Yukons, where because of the positioning of the starter and the wires and such, where there is a fair amount of normal corrosion that happens on those connectors. I had one died in the parking lot here one day, and he couldn't get going, and we laid up underneath there, and as I was wiggling the wire on the exciter wire on the starter, it broke off right in my hand. It was so corroded. And so we had
good diagnostics.
But we just, we cut it off and redid the end of it, and it was golden, at least for then, because I didn't put any tape on it or anything. We just it was a quick job, but it was starting up and working perfect then. So you have to do a little digging.
Don, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. That's the number to call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you like our Facebook page or you subscribe to our YouTube channel and you go join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Jeff Munson, who listens to us in Show Low, Arizona. Congratulations from all of us here under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. Get in that career as an automotive technician. So many shortages around the country. You can just pick your poison on where you want to work. But if you are good with your hands, you want to be an automotive technician, a CNC machinist, you want to be a motorcycle mechanic, marine mechanic, you want to get into some NASCAR stuff.
The CNC, that's what I want to do.
Do you?
Yeah.
You've said that before.
Yeah, but I just want to make signs that say cabin life,
Chris
You know,
Carter,
yeah.
CNC. Yeah.
wine o'clock. I want to just make signs like that with the CNC. I saw a guy doing some stuff on the CNC once. I couldn't come up with anything good to do, but I could copy some stuff.
You're going to need to go to Universal Technical Institute then because you can't afford the machine.
Right.
So you're going to have to work at a place where you can just kind of make some of those on the side. Yeah, it's I wonder how many people make that stuff. But uti.edu, they'll have all sorts of great training available for pretty much anything automotive you want to get into. They're really good at it.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Steve. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Steve, what can we do for you?
Good morning. Hey, my granddaughter has a 2002 Dodge Caravan, and the engine's running. She puts it in gear. She gets a quarter mile down the road, and then it stops rolling. Sounds like a transmission problem. You turn it off, you let it sit a little bit, you fire it back up, and you get another quarter mile. What kind of things could be causing that?
It is narrowed down to a pretty small list. And the list is expensive.
Good.
And the list is, well, it's not good.
The list is expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good.
Pretty small list. The transmission needs to be replaced. That's the kind of like the list. That's it. If it absolutely stops and doesn't go anywhere, in this case, yeah, it's
Because even with the
I kind of hear it whining.
Mhm.
We've checked the fluid. It's got enough fluid. That was my first thought.
how's the fluid look?
I'm thinking it was brownish.
Mhm.
Most likely it's got enough clutch slippage going on that it just, once it warms up, it starts pushing fluid past the seals and it's just not able to keep the friction. Now, in a very optimistic viewpoint, they do have an if it's a 4-speed automatic, they do have, it is a 4-speed automatic, correct? With the overdrive?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They do have a solenoid pack on those on the front. But I think even with that solenoid pack not
Still gonna
connected,
move.
it should still move.
It's still moving, at least in the, well, it would go into second gear default, but it would at least pull there. Before you put a trans in it, if it's fluid's burnt, I'm sure it's done, but the very last ditch effort would be to pull the pan off it and see if the filter is in there and still connected, because if it wasn't for some reason,
You might be able to.
if it had the wrong filter in and it wasn't pushed up tight against there and it was pulling air in there, that could do it, even though it's full of fluid. But
So if you had it in your shop, you'd pull it off and go, you know what?
Well,
Let's try this first.
we're going to pull it in, assuming that we're going to have to put a trans
Push
in
it in, yeah.
because we're going to, well, it'll
Well,
go
no,
a
you
quarter
said
mile.
go a quarter mile, so
So you got a
Parking
long
lot-
drive in
parking
your
lot's
shop.
not that big.
But you pull that, we're going to have to put it in and say, okay, we're going to put a trans in this. The first step is to pull the pan off to drain it before we pull it out anyways, because our cores have to be drained before we send them back. We're going to pull that pan off and go, yep, it's in there. It's done. We'll just keep taking it out. But if we pull it off and the filter is not connected, we may at that point say, okay, look,
You can you can assess it from
yeah.
that point and see.
Steve, the filter was not connected. Do you want to spend, $100 to put the filter back in and put the fluid in it and drive it and see if it fixes it? It still may not work, but we saw this off of there. We should try it. Otherwise, it'd be, we just put a trans in it. But we may also get the pan off and it may have a 1/2 inch deep of clutch material laying in it. And then in that case, you're like, this thing's trash.
Further supports our decision.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, sorry. Sorry about the call, Steve. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Chris. Chris, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hi, I have a 2002 Chevy 2500 pickup, and when you step on the brake, it slows you, but then it makes a grinding noise, and the brake pedal goes down further. What's that grinding noise?
What year is the truck?
2002.
That is the noise of the ABS system activating is what you're hearing. And this is occurring just before you come to a stop, correct? Like at slow speeds, maybe under 20
Correct.
miles an hour? So
Yes.
what happens is you've got ABS sensors in that measure your wheel speeds, your analog braking system. And as these speeds are reducing as you're coming to a stop, The computer for the ABS system watches those, and it says, okay, left front, right front, rear, and it's saying 25, 24, 23, 22, and it doesn't do a thing until it sees one of these sensors drop out quicker than the rest. That indicates that one wheel is beginning to lock up, and it doesn't want it to lock up because it's an anti-lock braking system. So the ABS pump comes on, and it releases pressure from the wheel that's starting to lock up. Now, in the case of a false lockup where it is not actually locking up, if it releases pressure from that wheel, the pedal's going to go down, and the it's going to go, and it's going to try to cycle that wheel, and it's going to release the pressure, and you're going to keep going forward. And in a lot of cases, it can be dangerous because if you're almost stopped and you're pulling into a parking space, like up against a building, you're probably going to run into it. And we've seen this a lot. GM did some recalls to repair some of these, but those are long gone. They made them to a certain year, certain miles, well out of the warranty of the vehicle. Some were 10 years, 100,000 miles, but they're all past now. Most commonly, the fix for that is replacing the front wheel hubs with the sensors, because the hub gets corroded, the sensor gets corroded, and it can't read correctly. So at lower speeds, it can't give the voltage signal to the computer to tell it what it needs. So typically the fix is replacing that hub. It can also be a wire that's broken between the sensor and the body, but I'd say the last 30 of those we've done has been the hub itself. And a shop can plug a scanner into it and read which wheel is dropping out faster. You may be able to do just one. Typically, we do them in pairs because with age, the seals break down, they get wet, they corrode. It's just a thing of the vehicle. So we'd suggest two, but I'd bet that's what's going on with it.
Unless your brakes are absolutely 100% shot.
Yeah, and
they're not.
Okay.
They're not.
Yeah, so that's very doubtful.
I've had someone work on that, and he's like, I don't know, and he says, just keep driving.
No, you've got to get that problem fixed. It's a dangerous situation,
and it happens pretty regularly.
Oh yeah, almost every time you stop.
Oh yeah, for sure. Chris, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. That was a problem we had with a car a long time ago. Same thing, except it would do it at about 3 miles an hour for like maybe a half a foot. And it would only do it once every month or two. And we chased it for a long time, and it just kept going. But I mean, it happened, 10 times over the life of the car. So it was a weird, and that was in the Prius. It was just a weird little thing that it.
You ever hit anything?
Never even close. It would never do it on hard stops at all. It was only when you were rolling up to a stop sign, almost from stop. It would, it didn't do it when you were coming all the way down, but when you were the second car and you were now rolling up to the stop sign, it would happen. It was a little bit frightening.
I'm sure
when
it
would
was.
happen, but it was like a tenth of a second. And it would just jerk forward, it would just about a foot or two it would go. So it's scary. I would hate to have that happening all the time. That would be very scary. 866-594-4150. Going back to the call before that, the transmission in that 02
Caravan, 02
Yep.
Caravan.
What are we looking at for cost on replacement of a transmission?
Well, what day is this? Because
Okay.
we could dress that a little bit. If you call a shop and say, "Hey, how much to put a transmission in my 02 Caravan?" And let's say today is Monday, and let's just say they tell you $3,000 for a remanufactured transmission, and I'm just totally making up a number here without even guessing anywhere around the number, but let's just say it's $3,000 to put that transmission in. While the labor should stay the same, if you decide, let's say on that day, this is a Monday, and you say, okay, let's do this. I want to get it put in. I'm coming in this afternoon. So you go into the shop, they tell you $3,000. No matter what, unless they find something else wrong with the vehicle and get your approval, it should still be $3,000 plus tax. But now if you bring it in, if you call them Monday morning and say how much to put a trans in, and they say, oh, it's $3,000 plus tax, and you come in 2 weeks later and say, yeah, I'm ready to get that trans done. You quoted me $3,000, and they say it's $3,850. You cannot get angry with them now because you didn't bring it in. So typically quotes for parts in stock that somebody has in their hands across the country, they'll typically go 10 days, 20 days, maybe 30 days on a quote.
And
But now,
if you write it, I mean, if I get it in writing, it'll say on there, won't it? Normally I wouldn't
Yes.
because, or if I'm like getting it for the insurance or whatever.
everywhere and everybody I know of now, their standard reply is when you say, how much is a refrigerator? They'll say, once you pay me for it, that is what you're going to pay. Or if you order it and you haven't paid, if the price is the same when I get it in my hands, that's what you will pay. If it's gone up 15%, you will pay that extra because the world has changed to that. It's just you do not know what something's going to be until it's in your hands and you've received it because everything has changed so fast. So be prepared for that. If you get that.
How many times have we heard recently, oh, it'll be 4 days to 6 weeks? I mean, we just don't know. Or 6 months. We don't know when it'll be here. It's ordered.
Luckily, we haven't had very much of that at all, and we've had very few price changes during a repair process like that. And there have been a couple we've had to eat because we gave them the price. We waited a day to get it. We got it, and it cost us a small amount more, but we had an increase on brake rotors.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get